Learning Spanish does not mean that you have to go back to school or invest in an extremely expensive Spanish class or with a private tutor. It's not that serious. So I've come up with 5 different resources on how to learn Spanish under $50. Let's get into numero uno. Did you know that Duolingo and probably your local public library have free Spanish classes? Yeah, free. If you go to duolingo.com, you can find a local Spanish class where a group of people on every single Spanish level, beginner, intermediate, and even advanced, get together and practice their conversational Spanish. Sometimes they meet at cafes, sometimes they meet at restaurants or just other co-working spaces to practice Spanish. So this would be a great way to meet people like-minded who are on the same Spanish level as you. And this is also a really great way to learn a language, because being disciplined and learning a new language by yourself, that's very hard to do. That's the one reason why it takes people so long to learn languages, because it's hard to have that discipline. So if you meet somebody in this class, y'all could probably ditch the class and just be like, hey, let's go study together. Next, your local library. I know in Atlanta there are a couple of library locations that have a weekly Spanish class where people from beginning all the way to advanced have a conversational, challenges and games to learn Spanish. And I think that is super bomb, okay? Libraries are starting to go out of style, so make sure you take advantage of your local library Spanish classes, okay? Now, these classes are free. However, depending on where you are in the United States, the parking could cost money. Maybe if you're going to a cafe, maybe you have to purchase a coffee or something like that to be in the presence. So this could probably vary from $5 all the way to $25 to $30 depending on the parking situation where you live. Most local libraries are going to have free parking, but who knows where the cafes are holding the Duolingo classes. So this is a great resource under $50. Hola, buenos, me llamo Daji Imara. On this channel, we do solo travel, but we are also learning languages, and today we're learning Spanish. So let's get into numero dos. Preply. This is my absolute favorite resource to find a Spanish teacher. When I tell you they have a budget from everybody, some people have Spanish teachers that are only costing $5 to $8 an hour, all the way up to $50. And the thing is, just because somebody is a much more expensive teacher does not mean that they are the best teacher. I have tried 3 within low to mid-range, and the teacher that I worked with that works the best for me only costs $13. And we meet twice a week. So if you're somebody who needs that one-on-one, like a group setting is not going to work for you, you doing it by yourself, it's not going to work for you, go to this app, to this website, and try to find a Spanish teacher. And the great thing is they let you have like a couple tries until you get it right. I think it's like maybe 2 to 3, because sometimes you just might not mesh with the teacher. Their teaching style may not work for you. Chemistry might be off, things happen. But this is a great resource if you are on a budget but you need a one-on-one Spanish class. Like, this is super helpful for anybody who learns just one-on-one and can't be in a group setting or by themselves. Numero tres. This is probably the most boring option, but I feel like you need this for your foundation for learning any languages. Textbooks, phrase books, any type of workbook that you can get in Spanish is going to help you with your foundation when it comes to verbs and conjugations and all things like that. All the boring stuff and why we are so against learning languages, because nobody wants to do that. What I like to do is I like to go to like a Barnes & Noble or a bookstore where I know they also have that book on Amazon, because I want to see the book first. Like, I want to flip through the material and see what's going on. All of the textbooks and phrase books and things that I have, I found them at Barnes & Noble, and then I went on Amazon and bought them for cheaper. Okay, that's a hack. Unless you just need the book right. I think 2 of them I bought the book right then and there because it was not that serious. But try going to, if you're getting Spanish textbooks and workbooks, try going to a bookstore and looking it up and then seeing if it's on Amazon to see if it's cheaper. Because even if even with the highest rated learning books, it may not be for you and your learning style. The great thing about learning languages is there is no one way to do it. Everybody and their mama learns languages differently. There's probably people who never opened a textbook and are fluent in this language, okay? These books can range from $5 up to $50. The ones that I have are usually in the $12 to $30 range. I would say maybe get 1 to 2 at a time, and as you start to build some momentum and really get into the nitty-gritty, then you start to buy some throughout your Spanish learning process. But I always think in the beginning it's good to get one textbook and use that as your foundation with helping you with verbs and conjugations and vocabulary and just learning about different scenarios in Spanish that you wouldn't learn just through conversation. So get you a textbook. It's going to be super helpful. It's going to be boring. Nobody wants to learn about vocabulary and, you know, things like that. But you need it to learn a language. Numero cuatro is going to be binge watching TV show. Now, a lot of people will always give you the advice to watch TV shows or movies in Spanish to learn a language. And I think how people translate that is learn it. If I watch the show over and over again, I'm going to be fluent in Spanish. Like, I'm just going to know how to speak and all that. No, what watching TV shows and movies help you do, one, they do help you learn new vocabulary words, they do help you learn new phrases and things like that, but it gets you familiar with that Spanish dialect. It helps you become a better listener, and it helps you understand how to use the words. For example, I listen to a lot of music and I'll watch a lot of TV shows specifically in Mexican Spanish because that's the Spanish I'm learning. So I'm getting familiar with the Spanish, with the Mexican accents. I'm like understanding their tone and how fast they speak and how they, you know, say different words versus a Colombian or a Peruvian or something like that. So this is helping you your listening skills, because often when people go out into the world and they try to practice Spanish with somebody, they're talking too fast. And then you're like, ¿qué? Like, so when you are listening and when you are watching TV shows, think about it as far as listening and not trying to translate and match all of the words with you're never going to learn a language like that. That's going to be so much harder for you to try to memorize every single word. It's not going to work. That's not going to work. So invest in a streaming service that has a lot of Spanish speaking content. I noticed that Netflix and Hulu have the most. Let me know if there's anything else. I didn't find, you know, much success with Paramount or Peacock or anything like that. So if you want to invest in a streaming service and you know, you want to learn a lot of Spanish, invest in one that got a whole bunch of movies and a whole bunch of TV shows. Okay, streaming service is about $15 or less a month. Okay, go to speak to a native speaker, specifically at like a restaurant or a store or something. But only do this when they are slow. And here's the reason why. When you are out in the world and you are practicing your Spanish and talking to somebody, keep in mind, it is not that person's responsibility to help you become fluent in this language. They are not your teachers. They don't have to sit here and go back and forth with you in Spanish, which is why it really gives me the ick when I see people who go to restaurants and they're practicing their Spanish or any language, and then they get frustrated with the waitress because they're speaking to them in their native language. Like if I was to go to Mexico or a Mexican restaurant and I'm speaking to the waiter in Spanish, and they're speaking back to me in English, people get offended like that. And it's like, think about how many times people come into the restaurant and try to speak Spanish with them, and then they'll speak back to them, and then the person not understand them. And then I was like, I don't have time to sit here and go back and forth with you. I got all these tables. I'm on the clock right now. I'm not your Spanish teacher. So if you're gonna do that, if you're gonna go to a restaurant and practice your Spanish, one, do it when the restaurant is not busy, and tip that person very well. Like I mentioned, they are not your teacher. They are not responsible for helping you become a fluent Spanish speaker. That's not on their job description. But be very respectful, and even if you want to, tell them ahead when they seat you down, hey, do you mind if I practice my Spanish with you? That could just help the whole situation even better. Ask them, hey, I'm trying to practice my Spanish. Can you maybe speak a little slower? If they have time for this, if they don't, then just respect that. But do not try to force it, and do not get offended if they start to speak English to you because they don't have time to be your teacher. That's not on them. So this could be, you could go to a nice little, you know, cheap restaurant and then just tip the whale and just spend $50 that night. That's the best way to go about that. If you need to speak to a native speaker, this is the best option. But again, do not be mad if they don't want to speak Spanish to you. That's not you are strangers. They're here to get their money and go about their business. Okay? If you guys want to see me completely sound ridiculous speaking Spanish, I have a video of me speaking Spanish for 5 minutes straight. Baby, we got some work to do. Okay?